Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is February the 9th, 2018. Wow, time is a-flying, isn't it, people? Strong hand. Golden hold. We'll be talking about gold, but we'll be talking mostly about Bitcoin today. All right, everybody, check out the notes section below. The links to all three awesome guests are below. You can check out their Twitter and follow them. And what a panel we have today. We've got Paul Capistani. He's going to be talking some Lightning Network. So if you guys have Lightning Network and Lightning Network questions and you're watching this live, you can just put it out in the Twitter, in the chat, and Paul will be checking the chat here and there. So this will be a little different. That'll be awesome. Of course, we got Andy Hoffman coming from Colorado. You guys know him real well. Now, there's someone that you don't know too well who's coming from India. Balaji Vaidyanath. I am butchering his name. Vaidyanath. Is coming from India, and he is going to tell us what is going on in India. Is India going to become the Bitcoin country of 2018 here? And I mean, I love when we have on-the-ground guys in different countries. I'm really excited about it. So we're going to start off with Andy, though, because Andy had a big announcement about how he sold the last of his gold. And times are changing. The world is moving on from the old ways of financial mechanisms to perhaps some new ones. And Andy was one of the biggest known names in precious metals on YouTube, and now he's totally become a Bitcoin guy. So, Andy, tell us what your story is and what's been going on this week for you. Take it away.
Right. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but a lot of people know a lot of my story. It goes back to 2002. So after 16 years, I'm finally completely out of precious metals. Everyone knows that I sold my silver this summer just as I was leaving the bullion industry and starting Crypto Gold Central, but I still had all my gold. In fact, I had a little more gold. Some of that silver I sold, I put into gold because I still felt at that point that gold had the storage of value properties that it always had. And I was completely happy with it. That's why I called the firm Crypto Gold Central. But it wasn't long after I started the firm in September that I just saw the explosion of value in Bitcoin, not just the price, but once SegWit was activated and the scaling war was won, and you realize it's an immutable blockchain. It's not going away, and it's growing in popularity. And that's before we even have all the technology that's been added on just in recent months, like the Lightning Network. And so I started to sell off my gold this fall. And by the end of the year, it was down. I've been very vocal about it, about a 5 or 10% position. And then yesterday I said, what's the point? So Bitcoin is such a vastly superior asset. I talk all the time about the Star Trekian world we're heading in versus the Flintstonian past. And people have called gold a barbarous relic for decades as propaganda. But I am now, for the first time, calling gold a barbarous relic. It doesn't compare in any way to Bitcoin. And it's not just Bitcoin. It's a digital future we're heading into. Anyone who's under 40 years old, probably anyone, even a lot of people who are older than that are starting to realize that already. I just can't imagine how anyone like my daughter is going to even imagine wanting to have a vault full of metal when they can have the most amazing scarce assets that there are. I mean, look, there's $8 trillion worth of value in gold right now and just about 100 billion in Bitcoin. That is going to change in a dramatic way. And that's exclusive of all the other things that Bitcoin could do that gold or any other currency can never do.
Wow, this is big news. And guess what? 123 No Scope in the super chat had to say, buy and hold. I'm 21 and have completely ditched fiat, holding some Bitcoins for my children. Long-term thinking. Adam and Andy, you have changed my life. Well, thank you very much for the $5 in the super chat, and thank you very much for the compliment. Andy, I mean, what do you think about 401ks and that traditional? We're all told, hey, man, You got to start a 401k. You got to save for the future. Invest in the stock market. What's
the 401k is the worst.
After this stock market week and this Bitcoin week? I mean, what's your deal with that?
Well, I cashed out of my not 401k. You can't cash out of that unless you leave your company or get fired. I cashed out of my IRAs in 2009 when I was 39 years old because they were talking about in Congress confiscating them during the financial crisis. By the way, I'm echoing. Someone has their view.
Yeah, but I think we're good now. Yeah.
Yeah, now it's good. But look, the government, the whole concept of retirement plans, the government owns your money. They can do whatever they want. They can freeze it. They can tax it. They can restrict how you use it. So get it out of the system. And by the way, taxes over time are going to go up. So the longer you hold those plans, the more you're going to pay. Because this tax cut now, no, it's not gonna hold. The debt is exploding. Eventually, they're going to go full socialist and have massive taxes like they have in Europe and Canada. And you'll be like, why am I holding a 401k? And as you said, you're talking about stocks and bonds. Look, I haven't owned stocks. I've never owned bonds, and I haven't owned stocks aside from miners in 15 years. They are an anachronism from a capital finance standpoint. They have been abused by Wall Street and governments with the monetization and just using them as ways to make themselves rich at the expense of shareholders and bondholders. And the future is just like Bitcoin is the future of money, decentralization. The future of finance is decentralization. ICOs will be refined to a way that people can reliably raise money without Wall Street, without central banks. That's the future. So if you have a 401k, A, get out of it because the government could do whatever they want with it, and B, not only are stocks and bonds an anachronism, but they've also been taken up to all-time high valuation levels by all the monetization. I mean, what kind of upside do you have from that?
Envy, you there?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, sorry. I thought something got cut off there for a second. I got to say, pointing out the fact that the 401ks can be confiscated. Yeah, a centralized mechanism there for all those people who are interested in centralized altcoins. Yeah, you're not changing the world very much with your centralized altcoins.
I mean, seriously, you talk about stocks right now, which again, it's not a secret that the government's monetized them. I mean, look, they do it in bonds. They tell you they do it in bonds. Now they're telling you they do it in stocks. I think the single largest holder of U.S. stocks in the world is the Swiss National Bank, which, by the way, for some reason is actually a public company, and it's been the best performing stock in the world because they print money and buy stocks with it. I mean, this is what the stock market has become, whereas Bitcoin is $130 billion market cap and probably is one day going to be worth $10 or $20 trillion in fiat money. So there's not much incentive to hold stocks and bonds. There's a lot of incentive to move into the digital age.
All right, everyone. Times are changing. Andy is a symbol of that. Pound that like button, people. Remember, check out the notes section below for all these guys' links to get your cryptography t-shirt like this one, or your Trezor ledger at cryptohwwallet.com. So a big thing, we're going to get into price, people. Don't worry. I mean, how much can we really say about the price? I mean, have a strong hand, people. Think year 2020. But perhaps the so-called crash is over. But we'll get to that in a second.
But there's plenty to say about the price, and we will.
We will. But I want Paul to talk about the Lightning Network because everyone loved the last time that Paul was on talking about the Lightning Network. The Lightning Network has been consistently in the Twitter news throughout all of this because this is a fundamental aspect of Bitcoin that has not changed, that people are working very hard on. So, Paul, take it away. Tell us some Lightning Network tidbits here. And people, if you got questions, he'll answer some of them.
Yeah, so in terms of Lightning Network, I don't know if you guys have heard, but there are now almost 600 nodes running Lightning on mainnet, which that's, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, actually, because even though the protocol, like, in terms of interoperability. So there's 3 different teams working on Lightning Network, and 3 different, the same way you have like Safari and Firefox and Google Chrome as ways to interact with the internet. There's 3 different versions of Lightning software for running Lightning nodes that interact and consist of the network. And so these three teams, even though they've all said that the protocol is now pretty much stable, there was a reason why or rather the protocol developers didn't want to tell people to start using mainnet for actual transactions yet. And that reason is because if there's any updates or backwards incompatible things that need to be tweaked, and that we haven't discovered through testing on testnet yet, it makes it a whole lot more difficult for developers to do their jobs, right? You know? And so, yeah, even though a lot of people are celebrating that the Lightning Network is getting bigger and bigger every day. I mean, it was just a few weeks ago that there were literally 3 nodes, okay, on the Lightning Network mainnet, and now it's at 500. There's 1,500 channels active, and let's see, 5.6 Bitcoins, I guess, total within the network, which is not like nothing. It's not huge, but it's not nothing. And so, yeah, I don't know. Personally, well, there are 2 camps. Basically, the Lightning Labs company has some of the main developers who have been working on Lightning Network the longest. In fact, the original founders were the ones who came up with the protocol. And they've been very, very conservative about telling people, hey, let's just use testnet. Let's figure things out before we go like all in on mainnet. And then there's sort of the Blockstream camp, which they have a implementation of Lightning called Seed Lightning, which they opened up a store where they were selling stickers and t-shirts, right? And they were accepting actual Lightning payments on mainnet. And sort of they were like pushing things out there faster than Lightning Labs seemed to be comfortable with. And so even within like this super early adopter, super technical community, there's people who have different interests in terms of like, is this ready yet? Should we be using it yet? But I've gone on long enough, probably. I'm totally open to any questions that folks may have. Yeah.
I have a question for you, Paul.
Sure.
I had Giacomo Zucco was the guest on my show this week, and Adam, he is amazing, right?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
He's amazing. And he was saying that Lightning Network is as much, or at least as much, about privacy as it is about scaling, which I thought was a pretty cool comment.
Yeah, absolutely. So if folks aren't aware, by default, every Lightning Network payment is basically onion routed, which if you've heard of Tor, Tor is the onion router. And it's basically a way to encrypt your, in the case of Tor, it's like your browser traffic so that it hops along different nodes and then people can't see what you're interested in looking at. In the case of Lightning, there are built-in hops where each hop cannot see where the payment originated from or where the final destination is to. And so that is built in by default into every single Lightning Network payment. And so it is bringing a huge level of privacy and like consumer protection, basically. Instead of right now with Bitcoin, you go to Block Explorer and you can see exactly how much money some address has, you know, and where they're sending it to. With the Lightning Network, that's basically impossible. So in my eyes, that's a big win.
Wow. This is a great update. People in the chat, again, we're going to go to Balaji right now, but if you guys have questions, Paul is going to be paying attention. He's going to be writing down the good ones, and he'll be answering them when I get around to him again. Everyone, pound that like button. Okay, so now that what you've all been waiting for, the real news of Bitcoin from India. We've heard so much, and we had a guest on last week also, and he gave us his perspective. Now we're going to have another guest on. So Balaji, tell us a little bit about your background real quick, and then tell us what's going on with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in India.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me on the show. I think to talk about India, it's what's happening currently is something mind-boggling. Just to recap, the entire calendar year 2017, kimchi premium is talked about in a very big way. You know, the Korean premium to the Bitcoin price, uh, whereas India has been no different. The price of Bitcoin has always traded at a 5 to 30% premium. During times of FUD, the premium used to shrink to around 5%, and during times of FOMO, the premium used to go to as high as 30%. And last week, when we had the budget session, there was some sort of misinterpretation of the budget speech, which resulted in some sort of, the opposite of FOMO. So the premium basically vanished, and we went into a deep discount for about an hour or two, where Bitcoins were actually trading at a discount in India. But a good 7 8 days later, the premium has returned once again. So currently, Bitcoin is trading at about 10 to 12% premium to the international prices. So the FUD kind of settled down. There were clarifications which came in from the government, which said that look, it's just a warning to the people, saying that look, if you think you can do illegitimate activities and get away by using Bitcoin, think again. Which is logical, which is fair enough, right? And governments also would want to categorize Indian government would categorize this as a digital asset rather than a digital currency, which is also fine. So they have gone ahead and they have set up a committee to examine this and come out with regulations. So meanwhile, things are going on as usual, and the real investors are continuing to buy into this cryptocurrency. Uh, the thing about India is it always gets a passing mention as far as the Bitcoin community is concerned. But it is to be noted that as a fact, it is the fastest growing economy in the world. The growth rate in India is 7.5%. We are a $2 trillion GDP. It took us 50 years for the first trillion, but it has taken just a decade for the next trillion. And I think it will take far lesser to obtain the third trillion dollars as well. So I think what is currently happening is uh, a lot of these millennials, they have got hooked on to this particular thing, the technology, and they are constantly trying to look at more information. They want to learn more. They want to learn about blockchain programming, and they are more than happy to allocate some part of their monthly income into Bitcoin. This is a trend which we are seeing, and exchanges have been good actors over here, and they have been promoting investments. They've always been saying that look, understand the technology first, understand what you're getting into before investing. Do not try to put all your assets at one go. Try to spread it out. In India now, there is a concept of SIP, systematic investment plan, where close to $1 billion of money keeps getting into the stock markets every month. Exchanges, the Bitcoin exchanges in India are promoting a similar thing, saying that look, whatever happens, do not worry about the short-term fluctuations and volatility of, but try to allocate some portion of your monthly income into Bitcoin so that you are able to sort of average it out over a period of time. And not to forget that we are an extremely gold-loving country. Just to give you some perspective, Indian households have something like 23,000 tons of the entire gold. And if you look at the total gold that has been mined in the world so far, it's about 190,000 tons. So 13% of the entire gold that has been mined so far is with India. So if you look at it, be it any occasion, be it a wedding or ceremony or saving for the children in the future, there is some allocation that always keeps going into gold. So keep that in mind. And now what is happening is you have the constant gold investments that are happening, and now you have a millennial population. We are the youngest population in the whole world, and these guys have the best of phones, right? So there is huge amount of smartphone penetration which is happening in India. Remember, it's a 1.3 billion population, which is 4x the size of United States, and the smartphone growth is growing exponentially. It's greater than 100%. While the smartphone growth is like this, the price of data is plummeting like this. So the affordability has gone up. everyone is able to afford a phone, afford a data plan. And if the millennials were to soon realize that here is something which is offering similar traits as that of gold, but it's easier to handle and it's easier to store. I can store it on my smartphone, I can store it in a wallet. Why not? So you could see a reasonable amount of money which was erstwhile flowing into gold coming into Bitcoin as well. That's my personal view as far as India is concerned.
I mean, when do you see this switch over happening? More so people not ditching gold, but diversifying into Bitcoin from gold. Is this the year, or I mean, are we a little way off still?
No, if you look at the gold, the last 4 to 5 years, India has imported something like 1,000 tons of gold every year. And last year was a lot of wait and watch. 2017, like people were hearing a lot about Bitcoin, and then like fence sitters, basically, like let me see how this progresses. And some made up their mind to buy, and by the time they verified with the exchange and all those things, the price went up to crazy levels, and then it's plummeted back again. So this switch is slowly but surely happening. But I think there is this Excel which is floating around, which says that these are the past Bitcoin drawdowns, and this is the amount of time it has taken to sort of go back to all-time high levels. Be it 2011, 12, 13, 14, whatever it may be. So from India point of view, this is for of the Bitcoin investors in India, more than 90%. I think this is probably their first bear market. They've never seen a bear market. They would have read about Mt. Gox. Even I've read about Mt. Gox. I've never experienced it. One thing is to say that, the Bitcoin price was $30 and then it fell to $2 and then it went back to $500. One thing is to see it on the Excel sheet. Another thing is to experience it yourself in your personal portfolio where, we had a FOMO high of almost $20,000. From there, we crashed to 6,000, and today we are at 8,300. So I think my personal humble view is if Bitcoin were to not even break the all-time highs, if Bitcoin were to settle above a good $13,000-14,000 level from where it is currently, then people are going to realize that, look, I mean, irrespective of FUD, irrespective of exchanges getting hacked and all those things, if I buy it responsibly and if I store it in a hardware wallet and keep my private keys safe, then this thing is going to create real wealth for me in the years ahead.
Well, here's a question. Are the people who are buying it now, are they keeping it on exchanges, or do they even know to buy a Trezor or a Ledger or a storage device of some sort?
So it's mixed at this point in time, because it's like the swimming pool where you're just putting one toe into it. You're not so the thing is, they buy it for a few $100,000, where even if they were to lose money, it wouldn't be a big deal at this point in time. So as they keep allocating more into Bitcoin, and then they realize the importance of storing private keys, I think you will see an exponential growth in the hardware wallets. As it is, we are seeing a good growth in import of hardware wallets, right, be it Ledger and Trezor.
Now, before, I know Paul and Andy both have questions for you, but I have one last question. We're talking Bitcoin here, but in India, do they care about any of the other altcoins? Do you think there is knowledge of the other altcoins there, or is it mostly a Bitcoin interest?
Why do you think XRP has pumped today? XRP, if you ask me, XRP has pumped today because one of the largest exchange has introduced XRP today. Zepay has introduced XRP today in India. So, wow. So that's why you're seeing XRP outperforming the other coins as things stand. So today, an Indian investor can buy Bitcoin, Litecoin, XRP, and Bitcoin Cash. He or she has 4 options at this point in time, and the exchanges are planning to introduce even more as we go along. And as far as your question about interest, I think a lot of it is a bit of, hey, you know what, Bitcoin is sort of mooned already, but this one is just less than $1. So the concept of market cap, for the non-financial people hasn't yet registered. So they think that a $1 coin can pump all the way to $1,000 or $5,000. So there is a little bit of buying because of that. But by and large, I think it is Bitcoin which is having the lion's share as we speak.
That was like the evolution in Korea. Also, they thought, oh, it's too expensive. I'll get the cheap Ripple. So I'm gonna check out the Zeb site there. So you're saying Ripple debuted on there today, and now Ripple
Litecoin debuted about a week back, and Ripple made its debut today.
Litecoin had a pump back then too. I'm going to look into this Ripple pump. You guys might have heard it here first. Why Ripple's pumping might be because of India. Pound that like button. All right, Paul, you got the first question here.
Yeah, so Balaji, I was wondering if you have a good sense for what the community on the ground is like in terms of, for example, meetups. Like, are there Bitcoin meetups with developers meeting up? Because like in San Francisco, we would have basically every few weeks, a couple hundred or so developers show up and we talk tech, like the technical nitty gritty stuff. I'm wondering what the community looks like in India. Is it like technical? Is it more like people in suits, like talking about alts and trading? What does the community on the ground look like in India?
Thanks for your question, Paul. I think by and large, you're right. It's as of now, it's a blockchain, not Bitcoin sort of these mega conferences that keep happening in some of the bigger cities in India, like Bangalore and all these places. So it's as far as technical meetups are concerned, yes, Bangalore does have a lot of these meetups which happen where a lot of tech gets discussed over there. And otherwise, there is a lot of importance given to blockchain. They would like to call that as a blockchain conference, and you keep having these conferences every once in a while in Mumbai and Bangalore and Delhi. Yeah.
All right.
And exchanges have always, they've been educating the customers quite well, and they have been sort of, also trying to engage with the government and the system, and trying to tell them about the new technology and where we are at this point. Yeah.
Awesome. Andy, you had a question.
Yes, of course. In my precious metal life, which was a very long time, I obviously followed India closely. Now, Indian gold demand has been always number one. In recent years, China's challenged it because of the people's affinity toward it and not toward fiat currency. But since the government's, they have the war on cash going on now, but before that, the war on gold started with the previous prime minister when they announced those tariffs back in, I think it was 2015. And since that time, there has been a bigger black market, but demand has definitely fallen. There's no question that Indian gold demand peaked several years ago, as it has around the world, and hasn't come back. And my guess, especially now that you see the war on cash going on as well, people in India have to be thinking gold is getting a little too risky to own. I mean, between Bitcoin emerging on the scene and gold becoming an enemy of the state, just like fiat is, my guess is that the people are starting to, change a centuries-old mindset toward their belief in gold versus, say, this emerging Bitcoin. I'm curious if you think that is starting to become ingrained in the culture. Is it still a very, very small percentage of the people that think that way?
So a couple of things. One, the gold demand, like I said, over the last half a decade or so has been stagnant. We've had about 1,000 tons on an average of import every year. Last year, we had just about 700 tons. And this year, again, it's picked up to around 1,000 tons level. Yes, the government did try to sort of impose an import duty on gold, but those things failed. Two things. One, the price performance on gold so far has also led to some people reducing their allocation towards gold. Given the fact that we are a huge, we are a 7-8% growing economy, let's not forget that the stock markets have given fantabulous returns over the last 4 or 5 years or so. I mean, there are that can match the price performance of Bitcoin as well over the last 4 to 5 years. So while there has been most of our savings have been into physical assets, real estate and gold. So the government had made a lot of encouraging steps to move into financial assets, financial instruments, be it equities or fixed deposits. So you have seen a good amount of household savings that have moved into equities over the last 3-4 years, thanks to the SIP culture, where close to $1 billion keep coming into equity markets. These are basically the long-term money. And secondly, in terms of culture change, earlier on, women in India used to wear, 100% gold jewelry. The entire jewelry, be it a chain or a bracelet or whatever they wear, it used to be 100% gold. So now become like the trend is shifted towards fashion jewelry, where the gold component in the entire jewelry piece has dwindled. So you have diamonds, you have other forms of jewelry which people generally use. So obviously that has also somewhat reduced the demand for gold.
All right. So hopefully these people who used to, since the demand is going down a little bit for gold, they'll do the smart thing, get into Bitcoin, pull an Andy Hoffman. Do you guys have any more questions for Balaji before we continue?
Yeah, well, again, I'll just comment that the governments have printed all this money, the Indians just as much, and put it into monetizing the stock market. And so, again, this is what we're competing with: all-time high record valuations of stock markets around the world, amidst an economy with exploding debt and all kinds of issues. I mean, if our biggest worry is competing with the stock market, people, you should be buying Bitcoin right now, because the stock market in the long term at these valuations is a dead man walking.
Oh, wow. Pound that like button, people. Andy, well, on the topic of valuations and price, you had some things to say about the Bitcoin price that you wanted to get off your chest there, I think.
Right. Well, I mean, everyone's watching what's going on. We see people talking about the technicals. I see a lot less talk about fundamentals. That's just the way of the world these days. It's just not a lot of people that like to look at actual math, which is what I was trained to do as a CFA, but it seems to be a lost art. Look, the bottom, I noted this on Twitter the other day, the bottom price was $5,970 the other day. It was Monday, I think. That equated to an exactly $100.0 billion market cap. That's not a coincidence. I mean, how long have we been talking about the institutional wall of money? I wrote back in the fall, when we hit $6,000, we will have a $100 billion market cap for Bitcoin. That is the threshold for all, not all, but just about all of the world's institutional money. I mean, when you're talking about hedge funds, it's no big deal. But when you're talking about mutual funds and family offices and sovereign governments and some other big institutions, they need a $100 billion market cap. So it's no surprise that level served as support. And now what we're seeing is, I mentioned this morning, it's been crazy the last few days. The price goes up, and then, every time Asia opens, it gets knocked right back down, and it keeps coming right back up as soon as that initial surge of selling goes. And what do you know? It's above the 200-day moving average. That moving average is about 8,000 on the dot right now. And, it's looking to me, between the institutional wall of money support and now the 200-day moving average, I think even Tone might have something positive to say on Sunday if the price is above, I don't know, whatever it is, $8,500 or something. So I really think that between the technicals and the fundamentals and the sentiment starting to shift, that I think we've seen the bottom, and it's not going to be long before people are looking around going, wait a second, the Bitcoin is the greatest asset there is. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. If you want to say there was a consolidation, that's great. But to me, the big consolidation had to do with the altcoin pump. Bitcoin pumped from 5,000 to 20,000. There were a lot of other reasons, like people speculating on the impact of the futures and the hedge funds coming in, but because unbelievably amazing things happened. I would talk about how Trace Mayer has said, when people try to compare the price of Bitcoin now and years back, the pre-SegWit Bitcoin is not the same product as the post-SegWit Bitcoin. The pre-SegWit Bitcoin is one in which there's uncertainty about the future of Bitcoin, about its ability to scale, about its ability to not be split apart by the Bcashes of the world. The post-SegWit one is the one where Paul's talking about explosive growth in the Lightning Network in a matter of months. SegWit adoption is exploding right now, and we haven't even gotten into, we're still in February. So I think that it's just remarkable how much is going for this asset right now. When you look at it, you go, $130 billion? I mean, gold's worth $8 trillion, and no one cares about it anymore. Why would it be worth 80 times the amount of Bitcoin when Bitcoin is the up-and-comer and gold is the one that's losing its interest? And then, of course, you talk about stocks and bonds, which are just at astronomical levels solely due to money printing. And again, if these markets continue to weaken, and they're weakening for one reason, people, because the government's losing control of interest rates. Interest rates is what keeps markets from collapsing. If they lose control of that, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to print money. This new Fed chairman is going to come right back to doing what the old ones did. We're going to lower. First, they'll say, oh, well, maybe we won't raise rates from 1%. And then the next thing you know, they're back at zero again, and we're in QE4 or 5, whatever. And it'll happen around the world. So again, people, Bitcoin has never been cheaper. And everyone in this panel will corroborate that there's not a single thing wrong with it fundamentally.
Well said. Well said. Paul, your thoughts on the price?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to bring up one of the points that Andy just brought up. The fact that gold is worth 80 trillion, is that correct?
8 trillion, 8 trillion.
8 trillion. Yeah, that's still orders of magnitude larger than Bitcoin. And there's a quote that I like from William Gibson, an author, which is, "The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed." And I think that's the reason why, basically, we see that Bitcoin is currently worth much less than gold. I mean, you only just recently, Andy, sold your gold, right? Like, you made that flip, but other people still haven't. And so I think it's a matter of people understanding this and like wrapping their heads around what is money, right? Like, most people don't even ask themselves, like, what actually is money? And so, yeah, these price fluctuations are going to happen either all the way down to zero, in my opinion. Like, Bitcoin will be worth either zero or will literally take over as the world's reserve currency. That's my humble opinion. And along the way, I think there will be huge volatility. It will be a super volatile asset until it's stable. And then, boom, you've got a stable currency.
And keep in mind, the people who own gold, right? They are all, not to be ageist, old. They're old people. I mean, I worked at Miles Franklin, for 6 years? The average age of our client, I would guess, is over 60 years old. Average age. And that age is not getting any younger because no one young buys gold. No one, okay? Anyone who's young, in fact, if you're younger than 40 years old, you probably don't even know how to buy gold or that you would buy gold as an investment. And then when you talk about people like my daughter, they will not even know what gold is. It'll just be another metal on the periodic table. It's all old people, and as old people age, they pass on their assets to young people who are going to be looking in the digital age. Millennials, Generation Z, whatever comes after that, they are looking at the future. I mean, I'm barely young enough to have recognized what's going on, but it couldn't be more obvious. Like, when you think about what it takes to, for instance, sell gold, which I just did, unbelievably horrible process involving tons of middlemen, huge costs, huge risks. Again, they say gold is outside the financial system. Well, it's not outside the financial system. Yes, you can hold it like in a safe outside the system, but everything about how it works is within the system. Bitcoin is completely outside the system, and it's just getting started. I mean, you talk about 2 or 3 years from now, when we have full anonymity and these things, and there'll be no need for governments, let alone banks.
Ooh, nice quote there. I like it. Balaji, what is, you have any comments on what was just said here and about the price? What are your thoughts about the price and what's gone on this week?
I definitely agree with Andy in the sense that, in terms of the youngsters, they are not much into physical gold, and they are not looking at gold as a saving instrument anymore. So if they would have $100 earlier on, you would probably allocate 5 to 6% in gold. I don't see that happening any longer. People are happy investing in equities and
Ooh, you guys there?
I'm here.
Oh, it was just Balaji that. Are you there, Balaji? Oh man, he was saying a good line there. He got anyway. Okay, well he'll come back. And for now, though, Paul, were there any Lightning Network questions out there, or do you have some Lightning Network stuff to say?
I was looking at the chat, and I don't think I saw any, but in the chat room, feel free to post any Lightning questions if you do have any.
All right, Balaji,
I'd like to know, Paul, how long is it before Lightning Network is actually more than just a curiosity, but is actually impacting the overall speed of Bitcoin? Is it 2 years? Is it less than that?
Yeah, I mean, that's like the $64 million question, right? And the answer is it depends. And I mean, adoption on mainnet is happening way faster than I thought it would and or should, because again, the protocol developers specifically didn't want mainnet to get big yet. And so, I mean, but you can think of that as good or bad, right? Like, people are using it, and if there's actual use cases, then hey, people will be using Lightning Network. But as it turns out, right now, normal Bitcoin transaction fees are actually really low. And so how much actual need is there for Lightning, right? When we're not getting spammed by Bcash fudsters, like the mempool actually can handle the transactions that Bitcoin currently has, like real transactions. And so does it even, I mean, right now there's, I don't even think there's like real use cases for Lightning Network. But again, like Bcash may mount another attack when they have their anarcho-polko thing or whatever. That's happening February 15th, I think I saw.
Yes. Oh, yes.
The Shemitah Fest. The end of the world is coming.
Let's talk, Adam. Let's talk about it, because obviously you know that I
don't talk about scum.
Okay,
I don't talk about drug use. Scum. No, we're not going to.
No, but it's important to note though that look, that the pre-anarcho-polko thing, and look, I did a whole video on it a week ago, and Adam talked about it because we all know that they're going to do it, and they started it yesterday. I mean, but it hasn't worked. I mean, it's a law of diminishing returns. When the entire world is looking at you, knowing you're going to keep trying this, at the same time, there's all this big money coming in and going, but what's the point? I mean, Bcash isn't like getting better than Bitcoin. In fact, it's like crickets in the Bcash network. Literally, no one uses it for anything. The only time they use it is when they fool people into thinking it's Bitcoin, and that's only the 80%ers. Anyone who's doing their homework knows it's not. They're doing it right now, and you know what? It's not working. The Bitcoin price doesn't care. They pushed it up to 0.16, 0.15 now. No one cares. And anarcho-polko, you know what they're going to listen to? They're going to listen to Simon Dixon giving speeches about Bitcoin, not Roger Ver giving speeches about Bcash.
Well, I think there are a lot of, I don't want to specifically talk about that event, but since Simon will be there, there'll be some okay people there. Simon's a great person. I think a lot of the people there are so conspiracy oriented that they won't like Simon very much. They'll want to hear, why their aliens are going to land in Israel and bring them Bitcoin or something. I mean, something completely ridiculous that Webbot, they want to have Webbot tell them, the price of Bitcoin, the type of people that hang out at that type of event. But I will say that King of the Trolls is a very persuasive person. And I think they'll pump the price. It'll keep, he was just on the Alex, I don't want to say that guy's name either, on that crazy show with all the gullible followers, who believe every word the guy says and then he changes his mind or whatever. He used to say 9/11 was this and then he says 9/11 is that. But anyway, all those gullible people who just love to live in that doom porn. Well, anyway, that helped pump the price too. And I have no doubt it's all cyclical here. That's the best way to conclude all this with all the altcoins get pumped for some unknown reason or another. Bcash is an altcoin. It's got some big guys behind it, and some guys who plan ahead for their pumps. And we should expect it to return to 20% again. I know you said the law of diminishing returns, but who knows?
No,
maybe it'll never get to 30%. There are a lot of 80%ers out there.
But the thing is that, Adam, like, I don't care if the price goes to 30% of Bitcoin. What I care is when the Bitcoin price is getting trashed, because he could do whatever he wants. Like Ripple pumps and these other guys pumps, and no one cares in our community. And that's where I think that they are not getting the bang for the buck. Because right now, no one in Bitcoin is paying attention to what's going on in Bcash. Whereas every other time, oh, Bcash is up, Bitcoin goes down. Now it's like, whatever, do whatever you want. And that is a first good sign. The better signs will be as we move down the road and people realize that Bcash is completely useless as B Diamond and any of the hard forks. It just has, like you said, some big people behind it to pump it. But this is the first step, a Bcash pump in which the Bitcoin price is unaffected. Very good sign.
Yeah, very, very good indeed. And yes, I don't think that's a great point. That I don't think it'll affect the Bitcoin price as much as it did back on November 10th, 11th, and 12th. That was unbelievable. That was amazing. That was an amazing situation.
I feel like they're sort of running out of steam, is what it feels like to me, at least.
Exactly.
It's got to be costing them tons of money that they're sort of like bleeding in terms of not only Roger, which people estimate that he may have $1 billion, who knows, worth of crypto assets. But like also the Chinese miners, like the Chinese government has not necessarily been making their lives easy. So now that the price has plummeted or gone down a bit, it's not necessarily like they're not as flush. The miners now can't just be burning as much money as they may have been trying to burn on like propping up Bcash. So I'm wondering like when it's gonna like fully run out of steam. Like I don't think it will ever fully die, but it's definitely seems like at some point Roger's going to just be like, I give up. Like this,
and Adam, we're talking about this for a reason. This is a big deal because again, everyone, when you say, oh, it'll keep pumping, but not you, but everyone has to realize that, like Paul is saying, they don't have the cards. They're playing poker with like 8 high against Bitcoin, which has a straight flush. So the way that they pump the price up, you could say, well, they have meetings and they tell their people in Korea, pump it up, because we saw the volumes on like 2 exchanges this time. But people are not stupid. They need to see that there's something going on. Look, I did my one-on-one with Rocky Palumbo a month ago, where he just completely annihilated Bcash's use case. He literally is showing it is literally impossible to scale on-chain. And now that Bitcoin not only has SegWit, but that it's getting used and the Lightning Network's being built on, everyone's looking at it and going, how could you possibly say you're faster? A, you're not faster. Try sending like some Bcash to Bittrex and see how long it takes. B, no one uses it. And C, your use case literally makes no sense. It holds no water, like in my cousin Vinny, right? So, and on top of that, like Paul's saying, there's money involved to get this stuff. Well, one, you need cases like Coinbase and CNBC one day to collude with you on one of them. Then the next time you need Roger to be like, all right, I'm going to sell 25,000 Bitcoins just as we're buying the Bcash. This costs money. And then again, the other person that Paul is saying, we haven't heard anything of lately? Jihan Wu. And you know why? Because why Paul is saying their business is getting more difficult. They now have competition from these mining, the software guys. You have the Dragon Mint. You're going to have, what we're hearing about, which was the big tech company that's going, Samsung is going to be making mining equipment. Now you have all these big mining pools being created around the world in Japan and Russia. Listen to Francis Pouliot saying they're running out of space in Canada to take, because everyone wants to mine there. So Jihan Wu's got bigger fish to fry than thinking, well, I can just manipulate the market. The market's much bigger than him. It's much bigger than Bcash and Roger Ver. And so right now they are slowly losing momentum. And that's what you're seeing with this pump right now. It's just, whatever. It could be any other altcoin right now. The days of this Bcash taking over Bitcoin, long gone. And I don't think that the days of just consistent pump are going to be around forever, because they are just losing, all the lies are being exposed. It's just that simple.
But 80%ers don't care about fundamentals. They want to hear a conspiracy theory. They want to,
but they can move on. There'll be other coins to move on to, Adam, where they can have just as much success with.
Well, I think we all agree that it is not a threat to Bitcoin. That is So
Yes.
I'm just like, let any altcoin pump. And again, that's why I don't say his name. I don't try to give them direct attention because they rely on other people giving them free marketing. That is something that he's very good at getting there. So
Yes.
that's why there's no need to say his name. He's the king of the trolls. You should perhaps you know who he is, perhaps you don't. And he's going to something called Shemitah Fest, where they'll talk about every silver conspiracy known to man and blame it all on Andy and I. If you
only knew, Adam, how many of my clients were into the Shemitah back years ago. I mean, it was like the greatest thing to ever happen to precious metal demand. I remember that summer, so it was like September or something is when it was supposed to be. Like Miles Franklin had like one of its best periods of sales because the Shemitah, and all the clients wanted to hear about was the Shemitah,
Yeah.
which of course didn't happen in the price collapse.
Yeah, it was supposed to be around September. Yeah. It was around It was supposed to be around Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, 2016. The world was going to end, and it's nothing happened. Nothing happened, people. Pound that like button. All right, we've got, I wanted to go back to Balaji here real quick. You had a question for Paul, Balaji.
Yeah, just a question. Sorry if it's like noob-like. How easy or difficult it is for altcoins to implement Lightning Network? Number one. Number two, say if Bitcoin takes X amount of time to fully implement Lightning Network, whether altcoins will also need to take same X amount of time, or will it be far lesser because they've already seen how good or bad Bitcoin has implemented it, and then act accordingly?
Okay, so question number one was how many altcoins can incorporate something like Lightning Network. So the answer to that is if they've got a fixed form malleability, such as SegWit, then they can. And so, for example, Litecoin just basically adopted that, and it was easy. It's basically Litecoin is a clone of the original Bitcoin code, so it makes it very easy. Then there are coins like Decred, which actually Decred is mostly based on BTCD, which is an implementation of Bitcoin as well. So I'm guessing it must not have been that difficult because they also Decred is also able to do Lightning Network, and then. So it depends on if the coin has a malleability fix and also the similar scripting abilities that Bitcoin has. And the weirder your coin is, for example, Ethereum and Monero, those are completely from scratch code bases, as far as I know. And so it's actually, as far as I've heard, it may not be possible to do, at least not easily, to do cross-chain atomic swaps in Lightning Network with those coins. And then your second question, Balaji, was?
So will it take the same amount of time that Bitcoin took to implement Lightning, or will it be far lesser?
So far less, because all the really hard work is what has been being done for the past 3 or so years, which is the actual protocol development. For example, when the Lightning node software was basically forked, which means just cloned and changed a bit in order to make it work on Litecoin, it was just a couple lines of code that had to be changed, because it's basically a very similar thing. And so, yeah, the Lightning Network, if Litecoin, actually, I'd be interested in seeing, you should be able to see how big the mainnet for Litecoin's Lightning Network is. And I haven't actually looked into that, but that would be really interesting to look into, because, yeah, it's just you spin up the nodes the same way, and that's something I'll have to look into.
Paul, you said there were some questions in the chat that people had for you.
Yeah, so I saw a few questions. Nate asked, do you think Lightning will be slow to implement at exchanges' wallets, or will they roll out fast to save fees? It depends. In software engineering, the answer is a lot of the times it depends. in theory, they should be incentivized to like lower their fees and roll out Lightning because it will make their customers' experience much nicer. But in practice, for example, at Coinbase, their infrastructure, like they weren't aggregating transactions properly. They haven't implemented SegWit. Like they're way behind. Their infrastructure, technologically speaking, is not up to par. Like they're not doing what they theoretically should be doing. And so, yeah, who knows, right? Again, it depends. It would make for a better customer experience. It should like make their business better and have them save on fees and everything. But who knows what like their internal like incentives are to either put a engineering team on this or not.
Hey, Paul, can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
Because we're talking about Coinbase, right? And again,
Yeah.
I couldn't hate Coinbase more. I tell every person who ever asks me now, I used to tell everyone go to Coinbase. Now I tell everyone go to Bitflyer, go to Gemini, go to Kraken, go anywhere but Coinbase. They have proven to be enemies of Bitcoin, and they are going to pay for it. And that's why when you see that they're now implementing SegWit all of a sudden, well, why do you think? Because business slowed down and they know that everyone hates them and doesn't want to use them if they don't have to. But what we see now is, yes, oh my God, after all that, they're going to be implementing SegWit. And what I've heard is that Coinbase is so large that they actually have a huge impact just as one company on the speed of the network. So if they actually do go to SegWit very shortly, as they say, I'm guessing that's going to cause a major increase in the productivity of Bitcoin network. Is that how you'd see it?
Yeah. So there was a person who basically put 2 and 2 together. He was looking at charts of like transaction fees, and then also noticed, I don't know if it was a tweet or something. Oh, actually, it was Coinbase had gone down and was down for like a few hours or something, and noticed that a certain type of transaction wasn't happening, and that then the fees were brought down. This was a while back, so I'm not sure if I'm remembering everything exactly. But yeah, they have a huge impact on whether transaction fees are high and whether whether the network is congested and slow or not. And they haven't been like good citizens, in my opinion. They basically wanted to socialize the costs of like the network's performance onto all of us by having bigger blocks. Like they didn't want to do the internal engineering necessary to improve transaction and like network conditions. And so that's why they were sort of basically pushing for Bitcoin Classic and Bitcoin Unlimited and then Bcash. Like they were trying to offload all that engineering work onto like the network and us as users, which to me is not a cool thing to do. So
definitely not a smart thing to do in a competitive market.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you got some more questions there, right? A couple more?
Yeah, there was at least one more, and in the chat, if again, let me know if I missed one, but there was another question from Gabriel. Question, is streaming money really a possibility with Lightning Network? There's still a fee associated with a transaction, right? Streaming money is going to be incredibly interesting, I think. It's going to, I think, be like a game changer in terms of how entire businesses function. Right now, we've got companies like Google, Facebook, like every media company in the world is basically reliant on advertising as their like revenue model, which, if you think about it, is not necessarily very consumer friendly. It means that like the more information that they gather on you, the more they know how to like tailor advertisements specifically targeted towards you. That's how they get paid more by advertisers. And so it's kind of like not a consumer friendly thing. I mean, yeah, you get things for free, but at the same time, like you're exposed to really annoying ads. And I think with Lightning Network and streaming money, that's going to completely upend the way that a lot of like really important big businesses function. Imagine not having to deal with ads because now you've got like tiny percentages of pennies worth of Lightning Network transactions like pay by the minute as you're watching something on Netflix, or pay by the word as you're reading an article and you're scrolling down the web page, you know?
I can't wait until I can do it on my blog. That'll be amazing. Pay by the article. Exactly.
And I mean, there's still a ways to go, right? There will be a huge adoption curve, but I think it's like one of the potentially most transformative things that's going to happen to the economy. But yeah, so and the second part of the question was, there's still a fee associated with each transaction. Actually, there can be negative fees associated with transactions. So, which again, I think will open up a whole crazy like field of different business opportunities, because, I mean, people now know that, yeah, with Lightning Network transactions, you have to pay a much smaller fee as the payment hops from node to node, which is going to be much smaller than like a full Bitcoin transaction fee. And so that's why people think Lightning Network is cool. And it is. But as someone who's running a Lightning Network node, you can say, actually, instead of charging like 0.0001% per transaction, I'm going to pay you to hop through my node. Okay? You can have a negative fee, which means like you can pay people to route their payments through you. I don't really know. I mean, it's like a game changer. It's going to completely flip all sorts of business models on their heads. And yeah, I mean, we're in the very early like stages of what I think will be a pretty big deal.
All right. Were there any other questions? Was that it for the? Because I want to cover all Litecoin when we got you here.
I just think that the streaming money thing is, I agree completely that it will change so much about the economy. Again, you talk about just Bitcoin is Amazoning everything. I call it the great obsoleter. Streaming money is going to change the way business is done around the world, and it's going to take out so many middlemen. There aren't even. I'm speechless when I think about how the financial economy is going to change because of this technology.
All right. Were there any others in the chat, Paul?
I didn't see any, but yeah.
Okay, very, very, very good here. Well, we're heading toward the end of the show. We've had a really long show with some awesome topics. So we're going to get to everybody's conclusionary remarks there. If there's anything that was left out, any stories they wanted to share, any thoughts. Balaji, let's start with you. You actually at one point it froze on you there, and you were in the middle of saying something. I don't know if you remember what it was now. It's way back a few minutes ago, but you can say anything you want now. It is yours. I just looked up, and yeah, someone already wrote an article about Ripple in India. So you broke the story here first, so that was very good.
Yeah. So I think 2018 will be an exciting year, minus the price, at least as far as India is concerned. My humble view is that a lot of fence sitters will finally take the plunge. They will get some exposure because the government has very clearly mentioned that, in terms, they may be coming out with regulations. As it is, the exchanges are self-regulating themselves. So you have the best of, there is KYC, there is verification. You can't deposit cash. You can only do a transfer from one bank to another bank, and then you buy your coins. Once you buy the coins, you're given an invoice. So the additional regulations which may come may be marginal in nature. So with that being the case, when there is even more clarity that it's okay to have an exposure in Bitcoin from a regulatory perspective, I think you will see a lot more fence sitters getting into this asset class. And like I said, it's a deadly combination. Fastest growing economy in the world, youngest population, demographics, smartphone penetration, very high internet connectivity, and a country that has always loved gold. And here you're getting something which sort of gives you all the features which gold has given you in the past, but it's much easier to handle. And it's a deadly combination, if you would ask me. So yes, I would be bullish at this point.
Well, I love it. I think you're starting to hear it first on a channel like this, that India is going to end up the Bitcoin country of 2018, just like South Korea was the big hit in 2017. We're going to hear a lot more about India, and I hope to have you back on the show to give everybody an update, because I think everybody loved this perspective that you gave. And again, his links below. Everybody's links are below. Let's go to Andy now with your summing up of everything that's going on, or anything you wanted to add.
I just think it's a unique time in history. Forget the Bitcoin price for a second. That just the amazing amount of change, and it's like when I look at it from the big picture perspective. When I talk about selling gold, it's not just a matter of financial allocation. When I realize that something that has served a purpose for thousands of years is all of a sudden becoming obsoleted by something that's only been around for 10, it's pretty amazing to think. And then, Paul's talking about the advances in the financial technology aspect of it. I mean, these things are going to lap the traditional financial system many times over in a short period of time. And the fact that so few people in the world, and we're talking about in India, where only a handful of people are just starting to get to understand this, when they've been thinking in terms of gold, and in terms of the legacy financial systems that the government is pushing. It's really just amazing how few people have caught on yet. But I think there's going to be, as you would say, the Netscape moment sometime a lot sooner than people think in many parts of the world, where they just realize we are moving from Flintstones to Star Trek. I mean, it's that simple. And it's going to be something that, we think what we've seen in Bitcoin so far has been a big deal, but we haven't seen really any part of the world. I mean, I don't know a single person that owns Bitcoin aside from in this community. So it's going to be something crazy. And I think this year is going to be a year that makes, by year end, it's going to make last year look like it was nothing.
All right. Bullish words from the panel. Paul, you've got the last word. Anything you want to add about Lightning, or anything that was left out, a story you wanted to share?
Sure. So just echoing what Andy was just saying, and echoing the quote I previously quoted, the future's already here. It's just not very evenly distributed. Like, we know what's up. We drank the Kool-Aid years ago, and we understand that, like, this is a pretty disruptive change that is pretty damn important. In fact, I think this is like a bigger deal than the internet itself. Like, this is going to change that many things. And the issue is, yeah, we are living in the future already. We're using Bitcoin. We know about it. We had the time and took the time and effort to educate ourselves about this, but other people haven't yet, right? And so the things that, like, Andy, Adam, like you guys with your YouTube channels, and your Twitter followings, that stuff is super important. Like, getting these ideas out there, marketing, I'm staring at code hours, every single day, and just in the nitty-gritty details of implementing and developing the infrastructure of this stuff. But we definitely need people to not necessarily learn how to code and get into the weeds yourself, but to understand the basics, like what is a blockchain? Why is Bitcoin valuable? Why does money exist at all? So all the stuff that you guys do to educate people and get the word out there, and stopping misinformation and FUD, that's super important. And I'm really glad you guys are doing that. So thanks.
All right. Bitcoin is bigger than the internet. You heard it here first from Paul. That's an awesome way to conclude the show. Well, anyway, we do this show every Friday. It's This Week in Bitcoin. So tune in next Friday when I'll be in Darwin, Australia. And of course, I do a show on this channel every single day, at least one. So I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Remember to subscribe to this channel, like this video, share this video, pound that like button. Thank you, panel. Thank you, chat. Thank you, viewers. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone. See ya. All right, guys. We're